My name is Penny Wyatt, and I am the Director of Family Programs in the Division of Student Affairs at Tulane University. And we are so glad that you've joined us for this evening's family webinar on supporting your student through academic planning and course registration. We have this set up to give parents background about this process that your students will be going through to register for next fall's courses. And the summer school courses are also still open. And so we want you to feel informed so that if your student reaches out to you, you know information to give them, and you'll just kind of be more informed about this as they go through the process. So I am really pleased to introduce tonight's panelist. Well, she's our main only presenter tonight, Heather Cooper, who is the Director of College Advising within the Newcomb Tulane College area of our university. So Heather is going to present tonight's content and she'll answer the questions. And so I'll turn things over to her now, and I'll join you at the Q&A time. Here we go with Heather.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Cooper. I've been with the College Advising Office within Newcomb Tulane College for over 13 years. I am currently the director of the College Advising Office, which is only works with residential undergraduates within one of our Newcomb Tulane College programs. Tonight's topic is going to really focus in on kind of what students might be up to around registration and kind of ways that you can support them. I do want to say before I kind of hit this list that registration is open for some students, mostly our older students, graduate students, or rising seniors. I assume my audience tonight is going to be parents of younger students, first year students, or first semester students, if maybe some of your students are spring scholars. But I rest assured that majority of the first and second year students will be registering in the next few days, and I will be talking about ways that your students can get in contact with our office, which I know is kind of the hot topic of the week, as I've seen it through communication with both parents, students, and advisors. But tonight I want to give you a little bit more context than just how to get in with advising. I want to also share with you kind of what I expect as a director of my advisors and their role and responsibilities within registration, how the student will participate within registration as well, and how you can support your students and really just help them maintain some perspective when things don't go exactly as they've planned, as they've made their list, and during the moment of registration. I always like to remind students and parents that, especially when we're registering for fall classes, we're really about 4 months out from fall, right? So there's lots of time not only in the next few days to make adjustments to registration, but also over the summer. And even departments will make adjustments to their scheduling offerings and things like that. So if you're having, I anticipate some questions will come up around kind of current registration, things that are happening or things that your student has reported. So just kind of keep that perspective in mind as well, that there is time to make changes, there's time to meet with an individual advisor, and there's time to see new classes even comes available over the next coming weeks. I'll talk a little bit about registration, kind of general reminders, and resources, and then how your student can really meet with an advisor this week. I do see a typo on this slide, which I hate to see, but I am noticing it. Penny, you can go forward. So the advisor's role in registration is obviously to talk to your student and make sure that they have the information they need to make decisions. We don't just necessarily hand them a list of classes, and we are certainly not the only holders of the information around what classes are next for a student, whether they be a first year student or older. students generally have a number of resources, which I'll talk about in a moment, to rely on to give them an idea of what they need. So one of the first things my advisors will ask students where are they at in the process and to really talk through kind of what do they need to know now to make good decisions within the week of registration that we are currently in, and what can wait, or maybe is a bigger picture question like, what am I going to major in? So, a lot of the stresses that come out in this particular week, I find, are related to the fact that making a registration decision feels like you're making all of your life decisions at once. And so, those two stressors kind of coexist. So, I like to remind students, like, what are we making a decision about today? And what can we control today in terms of what class is available or what teacher is available? And what decisions can we maybe make today, but keep an eye on new opportunities tomorrow? So that's not necessarily one of these bubbles, but supporting decision making, I think, is one of the bigger things that advisors are tasked with doing during this period. Making sure they understand what core curriculum requirements are on the table and that might overlap with a student's current major trajectory. If I have a student who comes to me and they are purely a science student, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in our meeting talking about their lab science requirement because they're probably going to hit their lab science requirement simply by doing the major that they do. But I might need to talk to a science student about when they plan to take their textual and historical classes. So advisors are at all times kind of taking the student in front of them, looking at what they're interested in, and trying to kind of make sure that student in that individual situation has the information they need that relates to their specific path and their next set of classes during registration. We're always going to remind students that they need to be balancing their schedule. They don't want to, sometimes they love to knock out every hard class they'll ever have so that the next few semesters look a little easier, but that doesn't always work when those classes are simply so hard that the success is less likely if they're all combined at the same time. And again, every student's different. One student might prefer to have all writing classes and reading classes, and one person might prefer to have all math classes. But I prefer to kind of, no matter what type of student they are, see a little bit of balance. So we're kind of hitting those classes little by little rather than trying to stuff a lot of hard stuff into one space. We will make course recommendations. People across campus love to send advisors information about new classes or new programs or opportunities. So as we get that information, we might make recommendations to students about new classes or a service learning class, or we might say, hey, this last semester looks like it was kind of tough for you. What can we do? And let me suggest a couple courses to you that might help kind of move you forward in the direction you're trying to go without overwhelming you. I'm not saying there won't be hard semesters. Sometimes that's just the way the major is structured and the expectation of the particular set of classes that those students need to do. But certainly we'll be looking for opportunities to find that balance. Sometimes the advisor may not be able to answer every question. We are a centralized advising office that works specifically with all students across all majors. Our main goal is to make sure those students understand all of the different policies within Newcomb Tulane College and the core curriculum that they require for graduation, but to get them started in a lot of the different majors that they might be interested in or minors and things like that. So our job is to kind of get them started, but sometimes we have to say, you know what? I can get you this far, but I also want you to talk to so and so in the department. And so in the department, this per faculty member will be able to tell you, when to fit this in, or if taking all of those classes at the same semester are necessary. So we'll kind of get the student ready for registration, but sometimes they have to kind of register and then sort through whether or not this particular schedule is going to work. So they might need to talk to various school professionals, major and minor departments, and so forth. If a student's stress has nothing to do with registration and they're just having a rough semester, we might connect them to other resources that are more important for the right now, kind of making sure the student is thriving in the current semester. And then we'll give them kind of like some pointers to get registered just to have that part done. And then we'll ask them to come back and check in. So sometimes we're just connecting them to other resources in this moment to make sure they're supported. And then we also are helpful in like looking for registration issues. Sometimes the programming and the schedule of classes isn't accurate and we have to help them sort that out, or two classes that they think they need, they overlap, so they can't take them at the same time, and we have to help them kind of find some new opportunities to kind of help fit those pieces together. So we are usually in this job because we like puzzling, and a lot of advisors are here to help students unravel the puzzles that they might have ended up in during their planning process. Next slide. So the student's role in registration. Every student's given something called a time ticket, which is the kind of set time that's based on the number of credit hours a student has earned so far at Tulane. And that time ticket is set by the registrar. It's kind of set by a computer, and nobody can change that because you can't change the number of credits that you've actually earned. So, first and foremost, the student needs to log into their Gibson portal and see their registration time across the top. 99% of the students know their registration time and when they will register. If your student has no idea what you're talking about when you mention registration or a ticket time, they're probably disconnected a little too much and might need a little extra hands-on support. And I'm happy to do that with your student, or you might want to say, it's time to look at registration. I hear it's happening. I just went to the webinar. They need to address any registration holds. So right before registration and sometimes in the weeks leading up to registration, certain offices will put registration holds on students so that they cannot continue registering. The highest number of those holds come from the immunization office for students who have missed certain uploading of documents, and so they have an immunization hold. The other one is accounts receivable, and sometimes that's because some sort of billing issue has not been addressed. So most of those offices are reasonable offices and willing to have a conversation, but because no conversation has happened, they often put the hold on so the student cannot continue to register until they've actually addressed the hold. Certainly, this is a space where parents may need to be involved if you have access to medical records that your student doesn't have, or your student simply just hasn't dealt with kind of how to upload this form or make sure the doctor's note is filled out, or how to negotiate some of the billing questions that might be coming up in the system. So kind of paying attention to that. But if they have a ticket time, let's say their time is set to open at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, tomorrow morning, the 8th, um, and that hold is in place, the student would not be able to register until the hold was lifted. No need to panic. It just means that they do need, but there is a sense of urgency that should happen. And hopefully, most students know when there's a hold, they know it's something that they're working on. But again, they might need your support in figuring something out, especially if it's around billing or things that you're already involved in. The other part of student registration, or their role in registration, is to make sure that they're consulting the academic resources across campus. Each student has something called a degree audit that lists all of their requirements. It also checks off things that are done already and then lists open requirements, kind of the things that are done turn green and the things that are not done are red. So it's not perfectly easy to always understand everything that's listed, but it's certainly a good guide. So using the degree audit, using the department website. They know they're doing engineering. Those websites have almost a semester by semester plan of what they should take. It's the students who don't have as many structured requirements who get a little bit more lost during registration because it feels like there's so many options. So for them, it's really important to say, what do you think you need next? Let's get those listed. And then folks like my advisors during drop-in advising this week, every day from 1 to 4, can come in and say, okay, you know those things, those are about right. I would agree that those are what you need. And then I would maybe add something from this category and this category. And then, or really over here, you have an elective space and you can do whatever you want with it. What's fun for you? Let's talk a little bit about what that kind of class could be. So consulting the academic resources might mean the actual online web resources or talking to some of the people on campus, like a professor or whatnot, depending on kind of what they're trying to figure out. Using the degree audit, I kind of jumped ahead, number 4, and then preparing within the class schedule itself, just preparing planners. I do want to say one of the things about a planner is that you can add classes to it and you could plan out and imagine your perfect life. And you're like, I'm not waking up till 11. This class looks great. And then I'm going to just put all my classes on Monday and Wednesday and I never have to go to class on like the rest of the week. That's a plan. That is not reality. After registration, you have reality because you've actually registered for the classes. So I'm not saying your student can't have their perfect plan, and some students do get exactly what they planned when they register, but sometimes they don't, and that's okay too. But because they've spent so much time kind of wedding themselves to that plan, again, sometimes the stressor of making changes to that plan really come out. And hit different students in different ways. So they just need to be kind of prepared, not only with ideas of what they need and a perfect plan, but maybe a couple different plans and another 4 or 5 classes that they would replace that ideal schedule with. And then just being ready. So if you register at 8 a.m., be up at 8 a.m. If you have a class at the exact same time as registration, have a quick chat with your professor and ask if it's okay if you pull your computer out during that time. So just preparing ahead of time mentally for being able to actually push the buttons that you need to push in order to be actively registered in fall classes. All right, I'm ready for the next slide. So these are some of the details. I know sometimes Penny will share these slides out. So I have written kind of a text heavy slide here with some links. So I'm not going to go over each of these necessarily, but these are all things that I have mentioned, right? The basic overview here is create the wish list of classes using the resources that you might have in front of you, asking questions of my office with college advising. If your student is interested in pre-law or pre-med, they might have already spoken to one of our pre-professional advisors about classes they might want to take or need to take on a semester by semester basis for those programmings or post-graduation opportunities. Or maybe they just have what they feel like is a silly question or a question about like, I don't understand why this keeps saying there's an error, the button's not working. This is where our peer college advisors, we do have peer advising downstairs at the bottom floor of Mustapher every day. Um, and it's great to kind of be able to approach a peer, if somebody in your age group, and just say, I don't know what to do here. Where do I start? And these are students who've been through it before. I have a lot of sophomores, juniors, and seniors on my staff for peer advising, and they're a great resource. So asking questions, not just of their friends. I know they're going to ask their friends. But if your student says, I've only talked to my roommates, that might be amazing. But I would also recommend, even if it's after registration, that they have some sort of conversation or contact with some of the professional staff on campus just to make sure they're on the right track. And sometimes your student will have done that by email, and email is another great place to ask questions. So I'm not saying a meeting has to happen for these questions to be fruitful. Um, I mentioned a planner. This is where they kind of add potential classes and then get ready to push the button at registration. So they'll want to finalize that planner. My best recommendation, if your student is registering, we're going to stick to the 8 a.m. tomorrow example. My best recommendation for that student is go ahead and look now, tonight. What's available tonight will be available at 8 a.m. So registration opens almost every hour on the hour. So between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock every day, beginning April 1st last week, and ending Thursday or Friday of this week, depending on the ticket time. So 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., all the way to 4. So your student who registers at 8 a.m. actually has all tonight to kind of look and say, okay, this is actually still available. This one's not available. So they can actually make all their plans. It's the student who registers at 9 a.m. after the 8 a.m. people who has a little less time to make some of those adjustments. But I just suggest always to students, make your plan and then look at how likely it is that your plan's going to work out as you get closer to registration in a healthy way, meaning looking once or twice before the night before and looking in the morning is probably more healthy than looking every 5 minutes because that's just stressing them out if they see other people registering. So finalizing that planner by reviewing the class schedule, looking for issues. They actually have a page on their registration page that shows errors. So if they are in something that's conflicting or they have something on their list that's actually got a is already full, then the system will tell them. And they should always have backups ready, which I've already noted. And then they're going to register. They want to log in prior to their ticket time. They want to navigate to the registration page. They want to press the button that says submit registration. And then there's another tab that says current registration. And that's what they're actually in. So if there's any confusion or they're changing things and things are happening, they might just need to go to their current schedule and double check that everything went through that they planned to go through. So that's how to prepare and actually register for classes. So what's your role in this? I have a 16-year-old son who's a junior in high school, and for the most part, my role is, hey, do you need any support with this? And they're like, no, or leave me alone. So support may look different for all sorts of different people and relationships. Other students are calling you constantly and saying how stressful this whole process is. So whoever your student is, these are kind of tried and true ways to kind of help your student. Sometimes, if they really don't know where to start, just helping them reflect a little bit, especially if they do have some of those more flexible programs or they're still kind of deciding between different majors. It's always important to like start with a couple classes from the majors they're thinking about, but helping your student to really reflect on like what classes will provide a good amount of challenge and balance, right? Because we don't want such an easy semester that they again are kind of saving all the hard stuff for later, but we want a manageable amount of balance so they're not taking everything at once. Certainly, a place where parents and families and supporters of students come in is academic planning for summer. Registration for summer at Tulane actually opened in the fall, so it's kind of wide open right now. And so if Tulane registration is in the cards, this is an extra expense on top of your already paid tuition. So things that might cost extra, whether they be summer school here at Tulane, study abroad opportunities, transfer credit from another university, or some sort of unpaid internships, kind of helping students think about what their summer might look like or what makes sense to do this summer versus next summer. Those conversations are likely already happening for many of you, but these are also useful conversations and they require you, right? If certainly if you're still the financial supporter of your student, or the adult in the room who kind of understands the financial implications of some of these things that your student may not realize. Referring them to our website can be useful. Our website shows not only how to make an appointment, but we also list kind of other appointment options. So we have getting them to our drop-in advising or virtual advising we have every day. During registration, we can be found in person here in Mustafer Hall or at the Smalls Family Hub, um, 1 to 4 every afternoon. And our virtual advising is also available from 1 to 4. So if your student is under the weather or it's just too hard to get across campus or whatever it is, getting them to our office, to one of our drop-in services this week is likely the best thing to do. If they say their advisor's only available next week, tell them to go ahead and book it. A little reality for me is I don't let my advisors do very many one-on-one appointments during the prime time of registration because they have to be all hands on deck for drop-ins. Every student needs a different thing. Some students need a full-fledged appointment and they will get a version of that during drop-ins. But other students might really have just like a quick question or wanted to clarify something or check something. And that's another reason to come into drop-in. So we just find that we are able to work with more students in a smaller period of time if we kind of just open these windows of availability. Our peer advisors are also available online from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So if your student has kind of a busy daytime schedule and wants to kind of walk through a couple little things with a peer advisor, that's a great thing to do too. So just helping them remember, like, yes, your advisor might not have a one-on-one appointment this week, but I went to this webinar and I know for a fact there's some other resources. It doesn't have to be your assigned advisor. We all kind of know the drill with registration. Doesn't mean we'll have every answer to every question, but we certainly will support them. So getting them to our website can help them to kind of start thinking about the things they need to think about. Um, Encourage flexibility and patience. I think if you are also stressed out, then they will kind of get more stressed out. So while that can be really difficult, I fully understand. I think helping them understand that, look, you might, like, if you and your entire sorority has been talking about taking this one class with this one teacher and there's only 25 seats in it, the reality of that might be harder. For some classes that have hundreds of seats in them tonight, the reality of that is likely better. I know it's not always that black and white, but helping your students say, like, look, it might not be, you might have to just take that class with another teacher or put yourself on the wait list and roll the dice and hope that you get into the preferred class. Um, but encouraging them just to be calm, that there's lots of time to make changes and there's lots of time to meet with folks in my office or to meet with the other offices that they might need to meet with as they move forward um, in their registration for the summer or fall. And this is a little just more details about that and flexibility and various options. Most majors and minors at Tulane are extremely flexible. So your students doing a couple majors in liberal arts, usually you need about 10 classes for each of those liberal arts majors. They do have sequencing for some of those majors, so it might be important that they're in a class for fall semester, for example. But it doesn't mean they have to be in a specific class. It might mean they just need to be in some sociology class and some history class. And as long as they're moving forward with some classes, then they have plenty of time to finish the majors in the time that they have left. If your student is super stressed out about maybe some of their STEM classes, a lot of times that's because like the lab's not lining up with the class or there's things like that. So reminding them that the university will kind of not let them flail, meaning if it's an engineering student and they need physics next year, and there's no seats on the day that they go to register, somebody's going to open up more physics classes or help them get into a physics class. And my office doesn't have access to like override departments, but we will offer to help get them connected to the office that they need to say. And we will be the ones, I'm the one as a director who's letting departments know, like, hey, do you know that some of your engineering students weren't able to sign up for all the classes that you suggest for the fall? What can you all do about that? And then they'll actually work on that. Again, if everybody wants this one professor and there's a bunch of seats in another class, then I don't have it much to ask for, right? The students might just have to take the class that is available to them. But if it's a real issue, nobody is going to not graduate just because they can't progress fully in their major. We just might have to kind of work out either an alternative or make sure they get to the department that can open up the seat or make sure this person is in the class. That's not always going to happen, but when that really is the last resort, there's a lot of support that will come from across the university. So getting them to understand that there's time and that the university and them can both make adjustments will be really helpful. Um, and stressing out doesn't usually make better outcomes. Again, I think the stress is usually about other things, classes happening right now that are hard or challenging, things that are going on much outside of academics that are challenging. So just helping support your student emotionally while knowing that the registration part can work itself out really well. Don't forget too, students can even come back in the fall and make some adjustments during the first couple weeks. We have our whole ad period lasts for the first 2 weeks of every semester. Excuse me. So this is just kind of all the registration nits and nuts and bolts in one place. Priority registration is open. It's just considered the time that registration tickets open for the first time. It does not indicate a time that also ends, meaning your student can't just register for 5 minutes and then it's closed down. Once your student's registration open, it's open for the duration unless there's a registration hold from some other office that comes to play. Schedule changes are allowed all the way through the ad deadline, which is those first 2 weeks of the next semester. Um, Summer, I do want to say, I guess I haven't written this, but summer classes, if your student thinks they registered for a summer class and do not attend, does not intend to take that class, now's a good time to check in with them to make sure that they've actually dropped it. This month and before summer classes actually begin, it's super easy just to remove it from their schedule and unregister. But I have seen students who accidentally register in class, like not accidentally, but they registered in a class at some point earlier in the year for a summer class, and then they decided not to take it. And I have seen students kind of get caught in a web of like, wait, I'm not in this class. Why am I getting billed for this class? So make sure you have a conversation specifically about schedule changes to summer because that actually doesn't really have an drop deadline. That should really happen before the class even starts. Summer is compressed, so all of the change deadlines are compressed as well. As I mentioned before, time tickets are based on credits and can't be changed. There is a website on the registrar's website that shows the ticket times and the credit hours if you're curious. But there's really no way to change it. So your student kind of has to roll with it. If your student's brand new to Tulane and they have 0 earned credits at Tulane, their ticket time might be more of a lottery. And so somebody with the exact same credits might register a little before them than after. Essentially, our system can't handle everybody registering at the exact same time, hence all of the different times. Um, During registration, your student should be in 12 credits to be full-time. This means to meet any scholarship requirements, merit aid, or need-based aid is all based on whether or not a student is full-time. Housing's based on full-time. So even if they didn't get during registration some of the key classes they were hoping for, I would encourage everyone to make sure by the end of their registration day that they've added 12 credits, even if they're on a few wait lists. Every student during their time will be able to register up to 17 credits. This is a full schedule and more than enough to move everyone forward in their areas. But it will go to the max at 19 credits at the end of this week. So on Friday, after everyone's had access to the registration one time, by Friday, the registration goes up from 17 to 19 so that a student who maybe I find that music students and dance and theater students who have like a lot of like little or even science students who have a lot of labs or 2 credit dance or theater things that they have to take. I find that those are the students who end up needing to be up to 19, but usually they can add those later and not without any stress around kind of competing with other students because those are just available to students who want to take them. Wait lists, if your student is saying they're on a lot of wait lists, keep in mind that they can only wait list for 3 classes at the same time. And this question comes up a lot. Students who are registered in one section, let's say of microeconomics, but they really want the other one, you can't register for one class and wait list for a different section of the same course. So even though the teacher is different, if it's microeconomics here and microeconomics here, you have to either wait list or register. You can't do both. And that's that for my slide, for that slide. So this is just an overview of the different places you can find us. All one-on-one appointments show only for the upcoming 2 weeks. So if a student is looking and they're not seeing anything available for their particular advisor, it might be that their advising is their schedule is full or they have planned time out of office after registration. But the registration system will always show the next 2 weeks. So I just recommend students open it the next morning and they should see at least the following day. Virtual advising is always going on, whether registration is happening or not. We generally run virtual advising Monday through Thursday, 1 to 4. But, oh, I think I got that mixed up on the slide. It should say 1 to 4. But during registration, we actually offer virtual advising Monday through Friday, 1 to 4. Drop in, and we offer extra advisors during that time period. I've already mentioned drop-in events. All of those are listed on WaveSync. So if you look up WaveSync Tulane Advising, you'll get all of our events that are currently going on. The big event that we do this week, in addition to the 1 to 4 time period, is tomorrow evening. We do late night advising from late for us, 6 to 8 o'clock. We'll be in the hub garage and we'll be doing drop-in advising with, I think we have about 6 or 7 advisors signed up for that. And so students who are really busy or stressing out or had a rough day with registration can come in at night and kind of clean some things up or make a plan for the following day. So I find that that event is well attended by students, and advisors really like kind of being outside of the regular office hours and seeing students in the evening hours. And I've already mentioned our peer advisors. Penny, I apologize for the time differences on this slide. I will make sure I can update it for both the virtual advising and the peer college advising for your future viewers. So next slide. Again, this is more about summer classes and planning, setting some goals, how much investment's needed. I have a lot of students who come in and feel like they are behind and they have a perception of being behind. I'm not sure where that always comes from. Sometimes they're actually behind, right? Like they fell behind or they took a leave of absence and things like that. That's one thing. But sometimes they just have a perception of being behind. And if you're a first year student, 9 times out of 10, you can't really be that far behind. So if they are feeling like that, we can talk about summer school, but there's also study abroad programs, there's service learning abroad programs, there's undergraduate research opportunities. There's ways in which they might transfer credit into Tulane. And again, as mentioned before, most scholarships only cover fall and spring. So if financial aid or costs are a really important conversation for your family, you might want to look at the summer school website and check in with a financial aid counselor. Financial aid will talk to students about summer funding as well. This is just a single slide that has a lot of the links to offices I've mentioned already. The degree audit for students. Students should know what that is. I hope they do by now. And the catalog, they probably know what it is, but have underread that. The schedule of classes is where they're doing the registration. The calendar shows us all of the different moments that students need to make decisions. And some of the places that do put registration holds includes accounts receivable and the student health office. And everything that should be written about those communications would be in um, on those websites. Keep in mind if your student's reporting a hold, they probably have gotten an email to their Tulane email about it for some time. So it's usually not just suddenly appearing, it's just something that they didn't realize was an issue until now. These are some of the specific dates. To April 1st, registration. Oh, again, fall 24. I wish we were in fall 24. We are squarely looking at fall 26 right now. April 1st, it opened last week on Wednesday, but most students, undergrads, didn't start registering until Friday. And then there were no new ticket times on Saturday or Sunday. Juniors usually register on Monday, little bit more juniors to tomorrow, actually today, and then our sophomores and freshmen and today and tomorrow and the next day. The last day of classes, as you're probably very aware, is the last day of almost the last day of April, April 29th. We have an exam period from May 2nd through May 7th. If you are coming down for Jazz Fest, you can send your student to their exam while you go to Jazz Fest. And then May 9th, all grades are due for all students. And that is it. It's time for questions. This is all of my direct information. Um, while I can't meet with every one of our undergraduates, I'm always happy to route people in the right direction or meet with people who are, if you're really running into some obstacles that need to be looked at, you're going to call me. So make sure you touch base with me and feel free to jot my information down for yourself or for your student. And that's
Well,
it.
we'll open it up to all of you now. If you have any questions, now's the time to type those into the Q&A feature in your controls, and we'll let Heather answer those. So at this point, I'm not seeing any questions, but we'll wait a little bit longer and see if anyone has anything to ask. Heather, thank you for giving such a thorough presentation. So one question is, when will the incoming freshmen start registering for classes?
Oh, yes. Um, so we will begin registration for incoming students at slightly different points, but they will start receiving information beginning May 1st. So their May 1st is the deposit deadline, as you probably know. And once May 1st comes, they will receive access to the first year experience modules that does not just cover advising, but covers a lot of onboarding information. And at that time, they'll have most of May to kind of look through some of those modules. And then what we normally do for registration is we pre-register students in classes that would be useful to them to get started in their assumed major. And then during June, we actually meet with them in small groups and they can make schedule adjustments. So we drop them into the schedules at the end of May and meet with all of our incoming students mostly during June in order to make changes or adjustments to the schedules.
Okay. Um, on what basis do you drop them into schedules?
Ah, yes. So we drop them in based on their current primary major. So if they say engineering, they're definitely going to be in things like chemistry, physics, and math. And then when they make adjustments, maybe they have credit for math, they would make adjustments after that. But it's based on their first primary major. And again, some are going to be more exploratory. And so we're going to give them a mixture of classes that they might completely scrap and add new ones. Or it might be um, that they definitely are pre-med, but they don't know what they're majoring in. So we get them into chemistry, for example, but maybe a couple other exploratory classes that are good for first year students. We can always talk offline too. I know this is more focused on current registration, but they will have an opportunity to report their application, their major interest if it's different than their application, for sure.
And we always offer a similar webinar for
Yep.
families on course registration and academic planning um, in late May
Yep.
for the families of the incoming next year's class, so that they can get that information that's a little bit tailored more towards that cohort and the differences for their registration process when they're doing that before they actually, start at Tulane. So if the person asking those questions is the parent of an incoming student, then you'll start to receive newsletters and reminders about those webinars for that cohort of students' parents
That's
um,
right.
in mid-May, second or third week of May. So,
But they're all good questions. Yeah, I really
yeah.
appreciate them. I know everybody's excited for the upcoming year.
So, I'll just make another last call for questions from um, our participants here who are viewing everything. Looks like we've answered all the questions.
We look forward to kind of supporting them. So thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.